What's up, everybody? It's Jordan, and welcome to the Sports Dude Hines Show. Today is November 9th, 2021. This video is not live. This is around Tuesday morning, and, there's so much to get into. There's going to be lots of news tonight. Tonight it's going to be the second release of the college football playoff rankings, and with all the upsets in college football and near upsets, it's going to be a very interesting ranking tonight. That'll be released around 7. Also, Odell Beckham Jr. will be going on waivers today. It's very interesting to see who's going to be able to, take on the, circumstances with Odell Beckham, all the, possible locker room troubles with that. So both those could be happening later on today. And there was so much to get into this past weekend in the NFL and college football. We'll go ahead and get started talking about the Bengals here. I know lots of my listeners are Bengal fans, and once again, the Bengals have lost the second game in a row. We lost the Jets last week. I felt like maybe it could have just been a fluke loss. Despite losing, it felt like our offense was good. We still scored over 30 points that game, and a losing effort against New York, and our defense just was not good. Defense was horrible, absolutely atrocious. Sunday against the Cleveland Browns. We ended up losing 41-16. I don't think anybody expected this to happen. I was feeling pretty confident we were going to be able to beat Cleveland. We were actually picked to win by, I believe, 1.5. I felt like that was honestly a little too low for us to win. Clearly, I was very, very wrong on that. It was just everything went wrong. I want to be honest, Joe Burrow was not good at all on Sunday. It feels like the honeymoon, is over with Burrow. We need to start, taking him accountable for, some plays and stuff like that. We can't just keep on babying him when he makes mistakes. He was not good on Sunday. He was good on Sunday the week prior against the Jets. Obviously, he was great the week prior against Baltimore. But you start looking at these turnovers with Joe Burrow, it's starting to become a problem. And you can't just not notice it. You can't say, oh, that's going to happen with a young quarterback. We know Joe Burrow's potential, and we know his potential. He's not one of those guys who's going to turn over the ball a ton. Sunday, you look at the first pick, a 99-yard interception return for a touchdown, which really, really set the tone of the game for Cleveland. He threw it to Chase, in the end zone. The corner cut it perfectly. It was a great play. Ran it back for a touchdown. His next pick in that game was targeted towards Jamar Chase. He snapped it, didn't even look at any other receivers. He knew Chase was 1-on-1. He threw it to Chase. It was behind him, and it was another pick. You go back to week prior against the Jets, he threw one interception. It was a screen to Jamar Chase. The week prior, he threw an interception against the Ravens to Jamar Chase. Burrow is targeting Chase too much, and, teams are really, starting to pick up on that. They'll have him single coverage at times, which is not very often. It seems like the past couple of weeks, Chase has yet to hit the 50-yard mark in each of the last 2 games. Joe Burrow is just targeting him way too much recently. And it seems like half of his interceptions are towards Chase. Chase's drops came into a factor this past Sunday. Offense could not get going. Joe Burrow had at least 2 passing touchdowns in every single game this year. Heading into that game against Cleveland, he did not even have a single passing touchdown against Cleveland this past Sunday. It was just atrocious. The defense was bad again. I'm not trying to be one of those people already start complaining, oh, the season's over. But this is, the Bengals teams we've seen in the past who gives us false hope. We'll start off really good, and then we'll just suck. If you look back a couple of years ago, I believe we were like 4-1 or something like that. And, 2018, I think it was, we started off really good and finished the season with 7 wins, something like that. It was just, it sucks because you look at the second half of the schedule for the Bengals, it's not easy. And with going back to, Chase and Burrow, it's becoming an issue big time. If this Bengals offense wants to be in elite status, like it's 100% capable of doing, they have to get Tyler Boyd the ball. Tyler Boyd is one of the most underrated receivers in the NFL. If you don't follow Cincinnati, you wouldn't really know that. And if you were just looking at the stats this season, you would think he's just some average receiver. The last 5 games, since T. Higgins has came back from injury earlier in the season, the last 5 games, Jamar Chase has had 48 targets. T. Higgins has had 42 targets. Tyler Boyd has had 25 targets the last 5 games. That's exactly 5 targets a game. And honestly, when you watch the Bengal games, you honestly don't even think he's had that much. Tyler Boyd needs to get the ball more. You look at the catch percentage when you look at the big three, our big 3 receivers in Chase, Higgins, and Boyd. Chase's catch percentage is 60%. That's when a ball is targeted in his direction, his percent he's going to catch it at 60. T. Higgins has 61, and Tyler Boyd has 69. I mean, he's one of the more underrated receivers in the league. We as Bengal fans know that. And it seems like there's times Burrow just purposely does not throw the ball to Tyler Boyd. And it goes back to Burrow is constantly just throwing the ball to Jamar Chase. I know you've had chemistry with him prior to the Bengals. And I know Jamar Chase is going to be one of the best receivers in the league for years to come. But there's other receivers too. And it's not like there's like bums or not players who aren't really good or nobodies. Tyler Boyd, up until, not including this season, has averaged over 1,000 yards the last 3 seasons. T. Higgins is going to be a really nice receiver in the league for years to come. There's a reason why we as Bengal fans say that we have the best receiving core in the NFL. There's a reason why we say we debatably have the best wide receiver trio in the NFL. I'm not going to say we have the best trio, but we do have one of the best wide receiver cores in the league, but you're not going to notice it because Jamar Chase is taking all the targets. And I understand he's a great player and he's going to be phenomenal, but we have to get Tyler Boyd involved. The lack of Tyler Boyd in this offense is absolutely ridiculous. There should never, ever, ever, ever be a situation. Well, this past Sunday, we played the Cleveland Browns, who on paper have one of the best rosters in the league. Really nice team, underachieving. They are really good. There should never be a situation where Tyler Boyd has fewer targets in a game than Drew freaking Sample. I know most Bengal fans, including myself, do not really like Sample. He's a blocking tight end. He's not somebody who's going to, get multiple, lots of targets a game. But when he has more targets than Tyler Boyd, something's wrong with that offense. It really needs to stop. Boyd needs more targets. Burrow needs to stop targeting Chase as much. And if Burrow continues to target Chase, like I've already said, people and coaches and teams are going to start picking up on that, and it's going to lead to more interceptions for Burrow. I feel it's kind of a similar situation years ago when Andy Dalton, his first couple of years, he would only target, it seemed like, A.J. Green. And you look at Andy Dalton's interceptions during that span, the majority of his interceptions was when he was targeting A.J. Green. I mean, we could be seeing a similar resemblance between Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. But hopefully Boyd gets more involved in this offense. Hopefully, if Chase does get the targets like he's getting right now, he's, not dropping like he did this past week, and he helps his catch percentage. But, it's really interesting with the Bengals because when you start looking at this schedule for the second half of the schedule, it is by no means easy at all. We are 5-4 right now, which is good, but 2 weeks ago we were 5-2. We were really exceeding expectations during that time. The fact that we've lost the last 2 games against the Jets and we've also lost to the Cleveland Browns this past Sunday, we were once exceeding expectations, and just 2 weeks ago, we were first place not only in the AFC North, but in the AFC in general. 2 weeks later, we're last in our division. I mean, with the Steelers, the refs typically, as always, helping the Steelers beat the Chicago Bears this past week. We are last in the AFC North. 2 weeks ago, we were first in the AFC. That is ridiculous. That's a problem. Because when you look, let me see here, when you look at our schedule for the second half of the season, it is absolutely very, very difficult. You look at all these teams, every single team is either 500 or better except for the San Francisco 49ers. And they're a team who has not been healthy as of recently, so you can kind of make an excuse for them. So, obviously we have the bye week, this week, which is going to be very beneficial for us. We need that so bad. And, the following week we play at the Raiders. I know the Raiders lost this past week, but the Raiders are a good team despite all the circumstances and all the, headlines going in Las Vegas. They are really playing very, very good football. And then we play the Steelers, and I'm not going to say we're going to lose the Steelers, but I know the Steelers have won. They're in like a 4 or 5 game winning streak. The teams they've beat have not been good. But the way we're playing right now is not good at all. Then we play the Chargers. I think that's a loss. The Chargers are one of the more underrated teams in the league, in my opinion. We play the 49ers, like I said. That's really a toss-up. I know the 49ers are the only team on this list that's under 500, but they've not been healthy. Then we go at Denver. I think that's kind of a toss-up. I know some people would disagree, but if Denver can just have a consistent quarterback in this game, I think Denver has a shot at winning. Then we play Baltimore home, which the more you start looking at that Baltimore game, you can honestly make a case that might have been a fluke win, unfortunately. But after that we play the Chiefs. The Chiefs have underperformed this season. They're barely getting by in wins. Did not look good against the Packers and Jordan Love this past week. Then we finish at Cleveland, which, heading into the season, you thought maybe at Cleveland might be benching their starters because, the Browns might be battling out for the final seed in the AFC, the first seed in the AFC. Maybe they'll be benching their starters because they already, clinched the first spot. That is not going to be happening, it looks like. So, this schedule is tough. Being 7-2 and 5-4, that's a huge difference. I know I'm stating the obvious here, but even if we were, instead of 5-4, if we were like 6-3, like this is not good at all. 2 weeks ago, we were looking like maybe we can end up winning the division. Now, looking at the schedule, we're going to be lucky we're in the playoffs. I know I might seem like I'm overreacting, but I don't know how I'm not. The Raiders are a good team. The Steelers are improving. The Chargers are good. The 49ers are good. And the Broncos, Ravens, Chiefs, and at the Browns. Looking at the schedule, I'm going to give us probably 3 wins. I would take us over the Raiders. I would take us against the 49ers, and I would take us against the Broncos. I can maybe see us beating the Steelers or maybe another team in that, but I feel the thing is, it's hard to feel confident. Like, you feel really, really confident in 3 or 4 of these games. Like, I think we can beat the Raiders. I think we can beat the 49ers, and I think we can beat the Broncos, but I don't feel super, super confident in us beating them. I felt super, super confident in us beating the Bears. We lost. I felt super confident in us beating the Jets. We lost. I feel pretty confident in us playing against the Browns this past week, and we got humiliated on our home turf by 25 points. The schedule is brutal for us. This is going to really show what type of team we have. We have to get at least 4 wins to have any chance of the playoffs. One good thing is, out of these 8 games, 5 of them are at home. But as of right now, looking at the schedule, I'm going to take us against. I would take us against the Raiders, the 49ers, and the Broncos. That would leave us 8-9. That was my original prediction for the upcoming season. Hopefully, I'm wrong. But the way we are playing right now, like I don't see how people can expect us to win a lot of these games the way we're playing right now. Early on in the season, I think we're capable of beating any team on this list, but the downfall of this team the past couple of weeks has been atrocious. Hopefully we can pick it up. I don't want to get my hopes up because it seems like every single year it's just false hope with us. We start 5-2. Now we're 5-4. Now we're going to be battling out for probably a final seed in the playoffs. But it's going to be really interesting. It's really good we're getting that bye this week because it's going to be very beneficial for us. But going to be interesting to see how the Bengals perform the second half of the season. And one thing I will give, looking at this, Bengals and Browns game, you have to give the Browns credit. I thought Mayfield was going to be okay, and I think he was going to play great. But it seems like Baker Mayfield, he'll play against any other team, he'll be average. But when he plays against the Bengals, he's an MVP candidate. It makes no sense at all. But something about Baker Mayfield, you look at all this, Odell Beckham Jr., situation in Cleveland. And, he's not going to be with Cleveland anymore. He's going to get waived. He's going to be on waivers today, I believe. And, there's lots of controversy going on in the Cleveland locker room and stuff like that. And I feel like it's really ridiculous because you're looking at this, Cleveland team who heading into this game was 4-4, really underachieving. And, when with Beckham, it's announced that he's not going to be with Cleveland. And then Cleveland just humiliates the Bengals in a 41-16 win. Definitely Cleveland's best game of the season. I would have to give props to, Cleveland, Baker Mayfield, and their coaching staff for not getting sidetracked by this whole Odell Beckham Jr. situation. It's very interesting and just further proves the point that I've made multiple times, and lots of other people have made before. Cleveland is better off without Odell Beckham Jr. He's nothing more than a distraction and one of the biggest divas in the NFL. And it's so annoying how you see, I know Justin Jefferson, I believe Cameron Dantzler, the corner, the Minnesota Vikings, had the shirt that says "Free Odell." It's not like he's under bar, like in bars in jail. Odell Beckham Jr. is not like the A-team. He was not convicted of a crime he did not commit. He's still getting paid millions of dollars to play football that he loves. He's just aggravated that he's not getting enough targets, and he's whining and complaining like he typically does, a typical diva receiver. And they're doing better off without him. Beckham, I would get, aggravated that they're doing, better off without me. I would get aggravated if he didn't have much targets. But to basically just quit on your team, really proves that he's nothing more than a diva receiver. Odell Beckham Jr., me being a Bengal fan, I've said before, I cannot stand Juju Smith. I cannot stand Chase Claypool. I feel like both of those receivers are some of the most overrated receivers in the NFL. Right now, November 9th, 2021, there is not a more overrated receiver in the NFL than Odell Beckham Jr. It's not even debatable. He is so overrated. I've mentioned his stats before. Cleveland is way better off without him. His catch percentage is low. It seems like he gets hurt every single game. There's times he has more drops than touchdowns. I don't know where he will go because I don't know what team would want him. Originally I thought the Raiders made a lot of sense. That was before the Henry Ruggs situation, and that was before the trade deadline. I thought there was a chance that the Raiders could maybe trade to get Odell Beckham Jr. from the Cleveland Browns. But looking at this, the Raiders just signed Deshaun Jackson. Obviously, he's not what he used to be. But that just because you signed Deshaun Jackson doesn't mean you can't sign Beckham. I think it would make some sense, but I think it's very risky for the Raiders. And I think it's very, very, very risky for some of these teams who are in, I would say, a Super Bowl caliber team. For example, take the Packers, take the Bills, and even, I don't think the Raiders are Super Bowl contenders, but even take them, for example. When you're doing good and you keep on playing, you keep on doing good, and you don't get a star player at the trade deadline. Lots of people thought the Packers should have traded for maybe a tight end, including myself. I thought that would have been really smart. But at the same time, you kind of want to just stick what you have because you don't want to take a chance of that, player coming in and, just ruining the locker room. When you have teams like that, I don't know why any Super Bowl caliber team would sign Odell Beckham Jr. He's nothing more than a head case. He is an absolute diva. And, it just doesn't make sense. Like, realistically, if you sign Odell Beckham Jr., depending what team you are, you're probably going to be worse. I know it sounds crazy, but the Browns have a better record when Odell Beckham Jr. doesn't play. They are completely different when Odell Beckham Jr. does not play. And that could be the case for wherever Beckham goes next. Like I said the Raiders earlier. I'm going to say the Seahawks. That's kind of an interesting one. I know it was kind of announced a day or two ago that he would like to be with the Seahawks to go with Russell Wilson. Obviously they have Tyler Lockett. He's getting up there in age, but he's still very good. DK Metcalf, one of the better receivers in the NFL. And I feel like that's a little bit different than a Seahawks team in the past. But the Seahawks team in the past, around this time, will be a Super Bowl contender. The Seahawks team right now is not fighting for the Super Bowl. They're not Super Bowl contenders. They're just trying to get in the playoffs because Russell Wilson has been out multiple games, and they're playing a very difficult division in the NFC West. So I can maybe see the Seahawks. I just don't know what other team would be willing to sign him and just be able to pick him up. I don't know why you would. Like, it's very, very risky. It's like when the Buccaneers picked up, Antonio Brown last season. It was very, very, very risky. Not many people, liked it. Not many people thought it was a good idea. That was one of the few circumstances and one of the few situations where it actually worked out. But Beckham, I just don't know why anybody would sign him. But to me, if I had to pick a team, I think it's a team who's not a Super Bowl contender. I've said the Raiders for probably about a week and a half now. But I want to switch it to the Seahawks. I know that's probably more likely, but I just don't think a team who is in the battle to possibly win a division, a team who's possibly a Super Bowl contender, will be willing to take on the baggage with Odell Beckham Jr. So I want to say the Seahawks will pick Beckham. And it's very interesting because you look at some of these, games here, and it's like looking at it, and a week or two, some of these teams, like I mentioned, the Bengals were first place in their, division, and first place in the AFC in general, and now they're last. Other teams, who have kind of fallen off a little bit. And it's really interesting because you look at some of these games here, like this past week in week 9 in the NFL, this has to be one of the most upset-worthy seasons, in my opinion, ever in the NFL. Kind of starting off, with Thursday Night Football, the Colts defeated the Jets 45-30. Mike White, got hurt early in that game. But Josh Johnson, a former Bengal, I was a big fan of him way back in the day, played absolutely terrific in that game. I think if on the Jets, your next game, if Zach Wilson is unable to go, I'm starting Josh Johnson over Mike White 100%. Some people might say it's recency bias, but Josh Johnson was willing to throw the ball more than 15, 20 yards. He was throwing deep balls. He was taking chances. Look at Mike White. He was very good against Cincinnati, but he was doing those 5-6 yard, dink and dunk passes to running backs that any NFL quarterback can be making. I mean, you put Dan Marino out there, he could be throwing those 5-yard passes. It's not hard to do at all. But Josh Johnson, the way that he was moving around in the pocket, his deep ball was much, much better than Mike White. If on the Jets, I would definitely consider starting Josh Johnson if Zach Wilson unable to go. But no surprise there. The Colts are able to pick up a victory. And it makes, despite the Titans getting a very impressive win against the Rams and the Bengals losing again, it makes the Bengals and Titans look worse. Because it's like, how could those two teams lose to the Jets when the Jets give up 45 points to the Colts? Just doesn't make any sense. Some other games here, Baltimore comes back by 10+ against Minnesota. They won by a Justin Tucker field goal, bailing out Lamar Jackson again. The New England Patriots took on the Carolina Panthers. Sam Darnold was seeing ghosts when he was playing against Belichick again. I picked up the Patriots defense, really expecting Darnold to suck in that game, and he absolutely did through multiple receptions. You could see on the sideline where him and Robbie Anderson were going at it. No surprise there. The Carolina's just been a mess. They started off 3-0. Now I believe they're 4-5. Really, you should not be happy for Carolina. They have a really good team. Obviously, we've already talked about the Bengals in Cleveland. The Broncos pick up a very impressive win against the Dallas Cowboys, 30-16. This is what I'm saying. If the Broncos quarterbacks can be consistent and they can be a dangerous team, they proved it on Sunday. You can make a case this game was the biggest upset of the NFL season, and honestly, I would say this probably is the biggest upset of the season. The Jacksonville Jaguars not only beat the Buffalo Bills, who are a Super Bowl contender, but they hold them to just 6 points. And it's really interesting because, the Bills just scored 6 points against a horrible defense in Jacksonville. The week prior, the Bills, they could have lost to the Miami Dolphins up to the very end. And then, they kind of scored at the end of that Miami game last week to make their win not look as bad. Another game here, the Miami Dolphins took on the Houston Texans 17-9. Tua did not play in this game. If you're a Dolphins fan, you have to be so mad. You could have had Justin Herbert, but instead you took Tua Tagovailoa, who is looking nothing more than a bust right now. The Giants upset the Raiders. This is not really a surprise, in my opinion. I did pick the Raiders in this game, but when you're looking at it here, it's like, with all of the circumstances, all the situations going on in Las Vegas, they're going to have to lose a game eventually, and that was it. It's not surprising that the Raiders lost. And I don't get how people expected the Raiders to play great in that game because just, with Henry Ruggs, and John Gruden weeks ago, and then you have Damon Arnett, who's been released, threatening to kill a fan on social media. A lot of bad things happening in Las Vegas. And the Falcons upset the Saints. Jameis Winston's out for the year. Trevor Siemian started the quarterback. And, the Falcons are, playing pretty good as of late. The Saints, that was their third loss of the season. If they would have won, I believe they would have been first place in the NFC South. But they're still a surprising team this year. The Chargers pick up a narrow victory against the Eagles. The Chargers really should have won by more than that. I'm kind of surprised it was that close. And then you look at the couple games here. The Cardinals defeat the 49ers 31-17. That was without Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins. Shanahan deserves to be in the hot seat. And Cliff Kingsbury, to me, this even cemented his case even more to win NFL Coach of the Year. He's been fantastic this season. They have just one loss, and that was a very you could have controversy play by AJ Green, not looking at the ball. People just looked. Maybe we could see the Cardinals still being undefeated, but they are looking very, very good right now. And then a couple games here. On Monday Night Football last night, the Steelers defeated the Bears. Matt Nagy, he's a coach who's already on the hot seat. I don't know what more you could possibly want from that Matt Nagy in the Chicago team. They lost by 2 points against a Steelers team who is improving each week in Pittsburgh on Monday Night Football. If you are somebody who if you expected more from Matt Nagy, that means you basically expected the Chicago Bears to go in Pittsburgh on Monday Night Football and win a game, which that's not going to happen. The Steelers have not lost a home game on Monday Night Football since 1991. That is insane. And, Chicago gave them everything they had. It was a great game. Typical fashion, the refs helped Pittsburgh to get another win. We've seen it time and time and again. I see it so many times, seeing them in the Bengals division. But the Steelers have a big win streak. They are not as good as people think. Some of the teams they've beat, excluding the Browns, none of those teams are good. And there's two games I did not talk about here. One is the Tennessee Titans. Derrick Henry was out this game. And Ryan Tannehill, lots of people said, what can he do by himself? You don't know what he can do because he's been somebody who's not really had to carry the team on his back. I've been kind of very skeptical of Tannehill over the past years. But this game really proved to me that I think the Titans are capable of, being one of the best teams in the league without Derrick Henry. They won by 12 points in LA against the Rams. Obviously, Matthew Stafford did not play good that game, but still, scoring 28 points against this tough defense in the Rams is very impressive. Tannehill played good. Without Derrick Henry, this is what you wanted to see if you're a Titans fan. You were kind of, you don't know if Tannehill's able to take the next step and carry the team on his back. He was certainly capable of doing that on Sunday night. And then the one final game here is the Chiefs and the Packers. The Chiefs won this game 13-7. This game possibly could have went to overtime if Mason Crosby did not miss those 2 field goals. And, obviously Aaron Rodgers did not play because he had the coronavirus and everything like that. And looking at this Packers team with Jordan Love, I know lots of people are going to say, oh, Jordan Love sucked. He wasn't good. And, you look at this Kansas City defense, they were not really good heading into this game. This was in Arrowhead, a very difficult place to play. And as the game progressed and the game continued, you can really see the, Jordan Love, doing better throughout this game. And there were times, I know this is going to sound crazy, there was times Jordan Love looked better than Patrick Mahomes. Look at Patrick Mahomes. Just look at Patrick Mahomes' stats and Jordan Love's stats. And if you were to tell me which one of those players is supposed to be the best quarterback in the NFL and which one of those quarterbacks is making his first ever NFL start, I guarantee you some people would, take Love, looking at the stats, that he's, this, great NFL quarterback, and you think Mahomes is his first guy, this guy having the first ever NFL start, just looking at the stats. Obviously, Mahomes did have some drops with Kansas City. Kelsey had some drops. There was other drops as well. But I thought overall, Jordan Love did not play bad, in my opinion. You kind of maybe expect a little bit better. As the game continued, he played better. And, when you watch Jordan Love, I feel like, his describing him out of coming out of the draft was perfect. He was a raw talent, he was a project, and you can really tell that was the perfect description to describe him on Sunday against the Kansas City Chiefs. He has some raw talent; it's there. Just has to play more. He was a project. You give him a year or two more, I think he has potential to be really, really good. I know the Packers lost. Obviously, if it was like this, if Rodgers would have won, this would have been a humiliating victory for Green Bay over the Kansas City Chiefs. But I feel like there's still some things that you should be proud of and, maybe exciteful for Jordan Love whenever he's the full-time starter for the Green Bay Packers. And, when you mention the upsets, in the NFL, there was so many upsets, I already talked about them in the NFL. There was also some, near upsets in college football this past week. 4 teams in the top 10 won by 10 points or fewer, and 2 teams in the top 10 actually lost. Number 8, Wake Forest lost to North Carolina on the road, so they are no chance to playoffs. They didn't really have a chance anyway. Number 3, Michigan State lost to the Purdue Boilermakers, and when they play a top 5 team at home, you can pretty much guarantee they're going to win. It seems like Purdue beats another top 5 team again. They beat Iowa a month or so ago. They beat Ohio State years ago. And so Michigan State's lost, and Wake Forest has lost. And you look at, let's see here, Alabama, they win by against LSU by just 6 points. That's crazy. You look at Ohio State, they won by less than 10 points. I believe they won by 9. Cincinnati, they had College Game Day. You're thinking the Bearcats, they're going to play great. They are going to play fantastic. All the eyes are on them. College Game Day is in Cincinnati. They win by 8 points. Like, you would kind of expect them to play better. It's just very surprising that some of these teams were able to squeak out victories. Oregon, I don't think they won by a ton of points either. It's just crazy, the madness of college football this season. It's going to make it very interesting when it comes to teams in the top 10, teams in the top 6 of the college football playoffs. Some of these teams you would think would be good and just kind of sucked, like Ohio State, Alabama, Cincinnati. All those teams really did not play their best. Oklahoma's still undefeated. They're probably going to be jumping up. They play Baylor this week on a big matchup. I feel like if Oklahoma wins that game, they're going to be moving up in the rankings. It's interesting with the rankings now. It's so weird. Like, Alabama keeps underachieving every single game. You look at Ohio State. I mean, there's times they look phenomenal, and there's other times they just do not look good at all. And then Cincinnati, they are starting to have the point where they, normally you see Cincinnati be crushing teams by 30 points. The past few weeks, they are just barely getting by with some of these teams. Navy, was a close game. Tulsa was a close game. I will say with Tulsa this past week, I feel like that's not as bad as people think. And I'm not trying to, make exceptions for the Cincinnati Bearcats. But Tulsa played Ohio State early on in the season, and with 4 minutes to go, Ohio State was only up by 7 points. Tulsa played Oklahoma State, who was in the top 15 this season. They only won by, Tulsa only lost by 1 possession. So Tulsa has given their best against these top tier teams like this season, like Oklahoma State, losing by just 1 possession. Ohio State, they were down by only 7 with 4 minutes left, and losing by Cincinnati by just 8. So when you compare that game with Cincinnati to Oklahoma State and Ohio State, I don't think it's as bad. But they are very lucky that Ohio State and Oklahoma State have those games against Tulsa, because if they don't, you have nobody to compare that to, and that would make them look worse. And it's very interesting. The college football playoff rankings, like I said, comes out later tonight. I'll probably be making a video about that maybe tonight or tomorrow morning. And there's one other thing here. I feel like it has to be discussed. When you look at teams who are, top tier programs, to me, I feel like one of the teams that come to mind is the Florida Gators. The Florida Gators are 4-5 in a very absolutely pathetic loss against the South Carolina Gamecocks this past week. They lost 40-17. They gave up more points against South Carolina than they did Alabama or Georgia. They lost 40-17. They gave up 40 points to a first-year head coach. They gave up 40 points to the 115th total offense heading into this game, with a FCS transfer quarterback making his first career start in the FBS. Florida was picked to win this game by 21 points. They absolutely were atrocious. They were horrible in this game. The last 7 games, not in Gainesville, the Gators are just 1-6. The last 10 games against Power 5 opponents, Dan Mullen and the Florida Gators are just 2-8. And here's the real kicker: 2-8 the last 10 Power 5 games. Half of those losses are against unranked opponents. To me, that's what really stands out to me. Because when you look at those, other 4 games that are, Power 5. Okay, you played Oklahoma, you played Georgia, Alabama, and then you played Alabama again. So I could get that. But your other 4 is just unacceptable. It's just their other 4, they just lost to South Carolina. They lost to LSU. They lost to Kentucky. And they lost to LSU last season. Like, Florida is looking like they are notorious for losing games that they shouldn't. They are underperforming this season. And honestly, when you go back and look at last season, there was times they just underperformed. Like, they lost to A&M. They lost to LSU. 2 games that they should have not have lost. And it's just, Florida's better than capable of winning those games, and they're just not able to. I mean, half those games of the playing against the Power 5 in the last 10, they're 2-8. Half of those are unranked teams. That is unacceptable. They are 2-5 their last 7 games. Even looking back in some of their games that they won, they beat University of South Florida early on in the season. They beat FAU early on in the season. And it was one of those situations where Florida really should have played better in those games despite winning. Because, I mean, if it wasn't for bad coaching and just simple mistakes by USF and FAU, the games really could have been a lot closer. Like, this Florida team is not playing good at all. They are underperforming like they have, it seems like, the whole season, it seems like. They recently parted ways just a couple of days ago with their defense coordinator, Todd Grantham, and their offensive line coach, John Hevesy. And, depending on what finishes out the rest of the season, there's a chance Dan Mullen might not be the head coach of the Florida Gators. And, if you were to tell me that 3 weeks ago, I thought that'd be stupid. Like, why would you fire him? But now it's to the point he's just losing control of this Gators team. There's no discipline on Florida right now. I read a report. I do not remember who it was. They said Dan Mullen, if there was an NFL opportunity, he would leave in a heartbeat. And you want a coach who is committed to your program, and a coach who has control of his team, has discipline of his team, and is not losing games he shouldn't. Dan Mullen does not have any of that. I mean, if it's true that he might leave for an NFL job, who knows? You wouldn't think so because underachieved at Florida, but we've seen at times. Look, Cliff Kingsbury, he didn't have a great didn't have a great record at Texas Tech. Then he's with, the Arizona Cardinals. They were the best teams in the league right now. So I just really feel like at the end of the season, I feel like instead of right now, it'd be best if the Florida Gators end up firing Dan Mullen. And a couple coaches to me that really stands out. One is Jamie Chadwell. He's the head coach of Coastal Carolina. The last 2 seasons, this year and last year, they are 19-2. He has coached. This is his 4th season with Coastal Carolina. They are 27-17. He's going to be one of the top head coach candidates wherever once the season is over with. And a couple other coaches here. Matt Campbell with Iowa State. He's 41-31 in 6 years with the Cyclones. And somebody else is PJ Fleck. This is his 5th season with Minnesota. He is 32-22 with as a head coach of Minnesota. He actually has a better record at Minnesota than he does at Western Michigan, which was his previous job. That's, to me, very, very, very impressive. To me, if I'm the Florida Gators, I feel like Jamie Chadwell, the head coach of Coastal Carolina, and PJ Fleck are, in my opinion, the 2 obvious choices to possibly be the next head coach of the Florida Gators. Something is completely wrong in Gainesville, and it needs to be figured out quickly. Hopefully, the Gators might end up firing Mullen at the end of the season and maybe consider Chadwell, PJ Fleck, or a top candidate to replace Mullen in Gainesville. That really about does it, for this episode today. I kind of talked about the Bengals' pathetic performance against the Cleveland Browns. Where will Odell Beckham Jr. go? The crazy Week 9 upsets in the NFL and some crazy upsets in college football, and that Dan Mullen should be fired from the Florida Gators. I really appreciate you all watching. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you all next time on the Sports Dude Hunt Show.